the Digital Marketing Podcast.
Hello everybody and welcome to the active resistance against bad digital marketing. Every episode I try to help you clear up the mystery surrounding this digital voodoo that we call digital marketing. This is the Digital Marketing Podcast and I am Digital Marketing Punk. This is episode number 18 and today we are talking about Google I/O 2019. This episode was recorded in May of 2019, of course, because it's Google I/O 2019. Well, yeah, you get it. Okay, Google I/O 2019. It's kind of a cool time of year, Google I/O. I really enjoy it because it's the party time for digital marketers, for people interested in Google, for people interested in search, for people interested in, well, most likely Pixel phones, to be quite honest, because that seems to be the big drawing attraction of Google I/O. If you don't know what Google I/O is, it is basically a annual conference and convention which happens in America over at Google HQ, and they talk about all the latest developments, the things that they've been up to. And it's not like Apple iPhones release, okay? It's not just about one product. What they do is they sort of talk about all the latest things that they've been up to in terms of AI, in terms of things they've been doing with Google search, with all the crazy things that they've been doing in terms of, making Terminator happen and Skynet, all that kind of thing. And it's really, really super exciting and really interesting. Now, it's a 3-day event, okay? I didn't listen to all of it, but it's a 3-day event and a lot goes on. So I tend to just listen to the keynote, which is a couple of hours long, and they come on and talk about the main things. And I wanted to quickly recap because some of the stuff in it is really interesting, certainly to small business owners and for business owners. And we'll get into the importance of that and how much you need to take away from it. But I love to hear about it. I think it gives a really good future view. Now, not necessarily everything you need to act on right now that you hear in Google I/O, but in terms of a future view, the direction in which Google is going, the priorities which they have set themselves is usually really interesting. Now, I have a super, super cool guest to talk about Google I/O this time around. Mark Williams-Cook has joined me. He's right here. He has a digital agency called Candor over in Norwich. He organises an event called Search Norwich every couple of weeks, which sounds really, really cool. And it's for search professionals. It's for small business owners. And he has some cool speakers that come on every time and talks about a certain topic within the search industry. He's a super cool guy. I see him on LinkedIn so much. I really enjoy his content. He does a really cool sort of quick, unsolicited SEO tip on LinkedIn, which is really interesting and fascinating and really good for someone that just wants to, get a nice quick tip for SEO every now and again. So if you do go over to LinkedIn, if you are on LinkedIn even, I do recommend that you go and follow him. But we're going to do a quick recap of Google I/O 2019 and its importance and its relevance to business owners across the world. So I hope you enjoy it. This is a recap episode of Google I/O 2019 with Mark Williams-Cook. Okay, so here with me now is Mark Williams-Cook. Mark, introduce yourself. What do you do? Who are you?
Thank you, Tom. So, as you said, my name is Mark Williams-Cook. I'm currently the director of a digital agency called Candor, and we're a full-service agency, do everything from brand, web app build to the bit I look after, which is digital marketing. I've been working in digital marketing primarily kind of search marketing for about the last 15 years and cut my teeth on that. So the first few years, most of my income came from building, ranking my own sites, working as an affiliate. And for some reason, after enjoying getting up at the crack of midday to eat cereal, work in my pants for no clients, decided it'd be a great idea to go and work for an agency. Turned out it was a good idea though, because I got to work for some really nice big clients and get some experience in some really difficult niches, and kind of worked my way up. I've worked at a few different agencies around the UK, so a couple down in Brighton and up here in East Anglia. And yeah, the last 5 years we've been running Canda, and that's been going really well, and still focused on SEO, still getting results, and SEO still isn't dead.
Absolutely, much to the annoyance of many of the digital community. SEO is not.
Yeah, right.
It tends to be the social media, the social media managers, things like that say that SEO is dead, which annoys the pants off us. But yeah, that's excellent. You're based down in Norwich as well, aren't you?
That's right. Yeah. So we're based in Norwich, and kind of work-wise, probably. Now, I would say, but only just under half, I would say, of our clients are in the East Anglia area. But we've got clients, obviously, like many people down in London, but Seattle, Australia as well. So complete opposite side to the globe. It's kind of funny, just how many big businesses are using sort of agencies outside of the city, really.
Why do you think that is? Have you got any clues or inclinations on that?
Well, I guess, I mean, there is a huge amount of clients and a huge amount of agencies out there. And I think as people move between jobs, they do take people that they know who get results with them. And those people move agencies as well. So I think it's just kind of the natural way of things. But yeah, I think there was, to be honest, when I started working in agencies 12 years ago, one of the first agencies in Norwich, they were very concerned about making sure they had a London number on the website, to make us look legitimate. And a lot of agencies did this, all over the country. They wanted a London presence, so it was kind of who had the most expensive hot desk in London. But we don't bother, and a lot of people don't bother with that now, and it certainly doesn't seem to have any negative effect.
Absolutely. Well, today we are here to talk about Google I/O, which happened as we're recording this last week. I'm starting to lose count of how many weeks we are, but I think it was last week. Google I/O, which I kind of equate it to a big iPhone release, but only for SEO nerds such as ourselves. It's like when the new iPhone is released and Apple do the big event, Samsung do the same kind of thing now. It's a big event for us SEO people, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's kind of useful for us, I always find, to work out what we should be thinking on our long-term radars, because a lot of the SEO community and a lot of the talks we go to, they're always focused on kind of what's actionable, what's working now, what can I do for my website, what can I do for our clients' websites that's going to get them the edge. And sometimes that makes you a little bit blinkered as to what's coming. So that's what I like to look for I/O, to take a step back and think, okay, so what's the trajectory on what we're currently doing? Is this strategy going to age well, or are we suddenly in 2 years going to find we've slowly bled out in the rankings because we've missed the bigger picture?
And it's a 3-day event, and usually there's a big keynote at the start, and we're going to discuss some of the points that are in the keynote right at the very beginning. But there are other workshops and things that go on which are largely based, I know there's it's a developer sort of conference, and a lot of it is very web-based, tech-based. I'm sure a lot of the developers that you work with were very engaged with some of the stuff that was going on. But for SEOs like us, it's actually, oddly, for a Google event, it's quite limited because they have such a widespread of different arms and different things that was going on, and there was a big focus on gaming and stuff that was happening this year. So we're going to focus down on just some of the search elements that are going to be important to not necessarily that you might have to take action, but like you were mentioning, it's about being aware of these things, certainly for small businesses. So what we saw, and one of the big major sort of things that was brought up, was this, move towards more what we refer to as zero-click searches. So the likes of being able to interact more with news stories straight from the search engine results page. Certainly on a mobile, you can go more in depth. You can find different news stories about the same thing. And one of the biggest things was now something which we've been clamoring for quite a while, was now an integration of podcasts into the search results pages. What do you make of that?
So my opinion kind of changes, to be honest, because I understand. So you get a lot of webmasters and a lot of people in SEO, maybe rightly so. I kind of don't want to open that Pandora's box too much, complaining about zero-click search results. So these are the search results where Google is, by whatever means, surfacing your information without the user clicking going to your site. Now, of course, most websites have business models that rely on people visiting their website, whether it's supporting it through advertising or to buy their product or whatever, to essentially pay the people that are writing that content. So there's a fair argument there of people saying, well, Google is essentially in a way scraping our content, and we're not really getting anything from it. And so I can fully understand that point of view. And it was actually today I was reflecting on this, thinking, so again, casting my mind back several years, a decade even, to when we almost used to scoff at companies that kind of refused to take their business online. They refused to have a website, because we'd say that, this is how people are researching things now. This is how people are buying things now. By not doing this, you're making it more difficult for your customers. And they were sort of, some were slow to act, and, a lot went out of business when they didn't do it. And I do wonder, so the other side of the zero-click result is, I do believe that it's genuinely the path of least resistance for the user.
Yeah.
In that if they have a query, they do it on the phone. We've been seeing ones like the weather ones for years, and I don't recall people complaining about them. So rather than having to scroll down and click on a weather website, you just Google your location and the weather and you get the answers. And that's now happening, as we know, across lots of different results. So that having to do less clicks, that reducing the latency of having to load up other pages and rely on other websites to be fast as well, because obviously Google is loading the information fast, it is the path of least resistance. So I think while Google is allowed to do that, that users will continue to kind of lap that up because it's easier for them. So I do always wonder, if I'm complaining about this, am I the next generation of naysayer who's digging their heels in, saying, well, I don't like this, so I'm not going to do it. And then you're left with that Spanish prisoner problem of, well, there will be people prepared to do it, even at a slight cost to them. So then they will be the ones that get in front of consumers. So I see both sides, and I am leaning forward. I wonder if there will, like many people, be some kind of legal challenge to this, or if Google have to start compensating people in some way for taking this information. But I think it's generally a better experience for the user. So I fall on the side of, you should be doing it, really.
And
no,
carry on.
I was going to say specifically with the podcast, I think it's interesting. I mean, we're just seeing it over every vertical now, and it seems to be accelerating. So we're seeing more and more and more of these types of results.
Do you think this sort of gains a bit of momentum for podcasting? Podcasting has taken a massive resurgence recently in terms of its popularity. More younger people are now listening to podcasts. It used to be quite an older audience. Is this applying more power? Obviously, last year we saw Google's foray into a podcasting platform such as Google Podcasts. Is this going to then generate more momentum towards podcast or audio forms of content?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, as far as I understand, we had the resurgence kind of kick-started when Apple started putting the podcasting app front and center by default on the iPhones, I think, which really helped adoption, because podcasts have, like you said, they've been around for ages and they seem to be popular for a bit, and then everyone just kind of seemed to forget about them.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I mean, Google's underlying mission that they've always stated is to kind of index the world's content. So I think with them understanding images, with them understanding audio content like podcasts, it's the logical next step. So I think, again, there's going to be a whole host of queries where a podcast might be the best type of result. So if Google's learning that I'm perhaps interested in a topic and it's more than a specific one query I have, so I want to learn more about that topic, it makes sense, I think, to return a podcast. So I think it will certainly help build up. It will help build up the kind of following, if you like, and just the ease of podcasting, because that's the other thing. It has got easier. I think the technology that most people can get 4G in most places now, etc., and we don't have these quite restrictive data limits. Just make it a very easy format, because we're not quite there, for instance, with video. So if you've got HD video services like Netflix, you still have to be really careful if you're out and about that you don't kind of smash through all your data when you're watching something.
There's another really important thing that came out of the podcasting element, which was, rather than indexing what would usually be the case of just the show description and the show title, we're actually seeing now Google index the audio content themselves, which is really interesting from my point of view, because there's only so much that you can put into a show description. There's only so much that you can put into a show title. But I'm seeing now, as I load up the Google Podcasts app, that if you go on to certain episodes, you can actually see in a little box which says similar search terms or something like that on each episode. You actually started to see search terms come up, which you can click and Google, which are not mentioned in the show description, not mentioned in the show title, but actually are just in the audio content themselves, which comes on to a different point, which is the live captioning, which has suddenly sprung up. So they played it as this is for accessibility, which is all really, really cool. Essentially, now Google will automatically add automated captions, which we've had on YouTube for a long time, will now automatically caption videos as you're watching them, as you're playing them, and seeing them in front of the eyes. It's actually a feature built into the new Android operating system, Android Q, which is really, really interesting. They seem to be mirroring that across into the podcasting world as well, and utilizing that to sort of gain access and understand the content within podcast audio.
Yeah, it certainly makes sense. I think the one of Google's projects they've been going on for a long while is obviously with their language kind of recognition services. So I think they've said that's key to their own AI efforts, being that if you can teach a machine to firstly read or listen and then comprehend content, you kind of don't need to be able to teach it a lot else, because it can start self-teaching. I'll be interested to see how accurate it gets over time, because I know with things like Google Translate between languages, they've made more progress, they said, in the last couple of years than the previous 10 through the kind of machine learning approach. And I think all of this and the kind of Google Duplex stuff, if we think about this specifically through the lens of small businesses, the whole theme, I think, of Google I/O is, I actually think it's going to give small businesses more opportunity rather than less when it comes to SEO. I'll qualify that instead of just sort of saying it and walking off.
Sweeping statement.
I think it's down to, we heard Google, over, I think it was probably 2007, I might have got that wrong, about 10 years ago at least, when they initially made that statement when they were introducing the knowledge graph, saying we're taking the first steps from becoming a search engine to becoming I think it was answers engine they used, an answer engine. And they were just introducing their knowledge graph. And I think we're now getting to the point where with things like schema and how people are using search, we're opening up more opportunities. So we know at the moment, depending which figures you look at, around 3/4 to 90% of searches can be defined as long tail, so meaning they've got super small volume. We know 1 in 5 searches is unique, they've never happened before, which is where obviously RankBrain comes in. So it's Google's AI that can specifically handle queries it hasn't heard before, which I think they said is about 15% of queries. So rather than, I think, like we had 6, 7, 8 years ago, where everyone's competing for a handful of search terms, because Google has essentially done 2 things, I think, really well, which is they're now handling the long tail stuff much better. So I think you're getting a much better set of results than you used to, because you used to kind of get fairly good results for the mid-head terms, and then when you started doing really specific Google searches, you just kind of get trash and spam still. And I think one thing they have done well over the last few years is for those really weird specific queries. Some of my favorites are around songs and films, when you're just kind of saying, what's that song that goes do do do, and Google actually somehow works it out. So I think for small businesses, this does make the kind of old thing you'd have to take with a pinch of salt, the advice from Google where they used to say, hey, write for humans, not robots.
Yeah.
That's kind of possible now, because if you do write good content and you have the diversity of key phrases and words that naturally comes when you're writing good content, you can start to get picked up on searches that you were never kind of going to be found on before. And I think the other thing that's playing into this, and that we saw really strong themes in Google I/O, was this trend where internet usage is moving kind of away from the web in a sense, and onto obviously phone apps, and onto, I think, especially the IPAs, the intelligent personal assistants.
Yeah.
So we've seen some quite complex usage. Did you see I think it was the last I/O when they first demonstrated the duplex booking, making the hairdressers booking?
Yeah. It's terrifying.
Because that was kind of terrifying, wasn't it? Yes, same word to me, terrifying. But I think those assistants allow, they're making it easier for people to be more specific with queries, and it's not just these queries that Google is answering. So it's trying to answer the intent, which isn't just the query; it's the sum of the query, the time, the location, the device, the previous searches, which is all richer information Google can, whether you agree with it or not, access now. And I think that's what gives maybe the small businesses a larger surface area to play in. So because Google knows that I've used similar businesses before, or these are my previous searches, or here's where I live, rather than just surfacing the same few big players over and over, I think they've got an opportunity to start appearing in these searches. So I think there is some quite positive news if, again, kind of they're willing to be proactive. So I mean, I've spoken before.
I think it's a sign, really, of if they seem to be doing all of this stuff and collating this data, certainly with podcast audio and like you're saying, the translation stuff, this AI, it is a process, and it's a long process of teaching this machine to be able to understand, as you say, intent, to understand all the data that it's being provided with. And we're not talking about a little bit of data, we're talking about huge reams of data, like you were saying, location, previous searches, the type of person that you are regarding on how you've been using and accessing the web and the internet. The more that it collates this data, the more understanding there will be. Therefore, the more diverse the results can be, personalized to you as an individual, and provide you with better results.
I think it's a brilliant summary of that 4-minute ramble I just did.
I'm going to move on to another thing which kind of relates to what you were saying, which is duplex on the web. So like you said, last year we had the terrifying duplex where you could ask Google to make an appointment at your hair salon, which I know you and I both do regularly. We make an appointment at your hair salon and Google Assistant will make the call and book the appointment for you, and literally will call the person, the receptionist at the hair salon, and talk to that person. If you haven't seen the video, go and check it out. Google I/O 2018 duplex and watch the video. It is terrifying, but they've now moved this and taken it a step. Well, they say it's a step further. It's actually not necessarily an advancement, but we're taking now duplex onto the web, where because Google Assistant understands you so much, it can now book things on the web for you, such as creating and filling out forms, or being able to ascertain, well, if you've searched for this particular thing, then I can just literally bring up the result and you click a button and it's booked for you, which was duplex on the web. What are your thoughts with duplex on the web?
Well, I think like with the 0 clicks, it can be a way that's going to level the playing field. Again, for smaller businesses or people without huge amounts of resource to put into kind of their tech stack, if you like. And I think we've seen that a lot with, you've got the open kind of APIs for instance, for machine learning now. So if you want to do clever stuff with your last 5 or 10 years of customer data, you don't need to spend tens of thousands of pounds on GPUs and hardware and have data scientists. You can access it through an API. Same with things like Cloudflare and all the services that allow you to kind of improve the performance of your tech without kind of you making the investment. I have some not worries but thoughts about how long that's going to take before it's actually manifesting itself on the web and being used regularly, and whether it's something even in the next 3 years, for instance, small businesses need to have on their radar, because I think some of these changes are going to happen and you kind of don't need to do too much to adapt to them. I think from the IO announcements, there's still, and to be frank, I've interacted with hundreds of small businesses over the years, and a lot of them are in the position where they're not doing like the basics still. So we heard even something that I think super basic, like part of the IO announcement, was Google's going to start supporting like extra kind of high resolution images. And I think that's again, it sounds really basic, but image search tends to be really underutilized, because people, I think, are naturally vision is our prime, for most of us at least, for our primary sense. And it's a shame when I see small businesses reusing the same photos from their supplier, or stock photos, or not even bothering to upload a picture of their showroom. And I think it just pushing businesses towards doing these things, we've got clients with showrooms, and one of the first things we look at is, well, do we have one of those 360 photos done in the Google Images, because they're so cheap to do. Absolutely. And it really, really, really helps. So I think it's exciting. I think it again, it's going to be the path of least resistance. I mean, my simple kind of litmus test for these things is it a gimmick? And by that I mean, is it something that actually requires more effort to do? So it's just kind of clever. It's like you look at it like, oh, that's novel, it's clever, it's flashy. Or is it something legitimately, like we said, kind of like with the 0-click results of, oh, that requires me to burn 20 calories less to do it, so I'm going to commit to doing that forever. So I think, if people buy into it and if it starts to work and it's less effort, it will get used. The duplex thing, going back to the original kind of hairdresser booking thing, the thing that I found interesting about that was, obviously the most efficient thing you could do would be to have another AI assistant at the other end answering that call, right?
Yes.
So it's one AI assistant saying, hi, can I, Mark's bald, can I book a head polish or whatever? And the other assistant kind of speaking back. But then if you've got two computers speaking to each other, it does beg the question why they need to speak at all.
Yes.
Because that whole thing could probably be done in under a second.
That's very true.
So,
that's very true.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's almost, is the speaking there just to kind of slow things down for us so we feel a bit more happy about the whole interaction?
It's a gradual introduction to this world. It's a really interesting point, and it raises another question, which is, you say it levels the playing field, but some of these implementations, like Duplex on the web, Duplex from last year, when we're looking at augmented reality, which I want to talk about in a second, actually, these things will probably be adopted by the big players first, okay? And the accessibility of this technology and nay, the resources required to implement this onto a small business's website or web presence or whatever, this is a little far off at the moment. And we're talking about some kind of not extreme, but advanced web development that'll need to go on in the back end before small businesses will be able to adopt this. So is it the responsibility of Google to then make this easy to implement?
Yeah, so I think like with, for instance, if we take Google Shopping as an example, so how Google's generating their product listing ads, if we think back to the days when it was Frugal or Google Base before that, it was incredibly tricky and difficult to generate a feed to kind of get yourself onto this service. And like you're saying now, required, there weren't many developers that had done that before. And, if you're asking developers to do things they haven't done before, it tends to be quite expensive and it doesn't tend to go right the first time. And now we're in the situation where every content management system kind of worth its salt has a plugin for free or for a very small amount of money that will just do it automatically for you.
Yeah.
So there's no real barrier to entry there. I think that's what we'll see happen with all of these kind of things. Yes, there will be people who will be the early adopters and they will pay money and they will get it working first. I think I'd have to reflect on whether I think it's Google's responsibility to make it easy. I mean, it's probably something they're going to monetize in some way.
Yeah.
So it will probably be in so it's going to be in their interest to probably make it easy to adopt. But again, going back to my point a few minutes ago, with most small businesses, the conversation, if it went to, well, how on earth are we going to adopt this, would probably be, well, you haven't even bothered uploading a photo of your shop, so should we do that first and then worry about duplex? And that, that's the thing. If you're, you can work towards that. All of these things will, over the long term, I truly believe, help you. It may sound silly, I brought it up, uploading pictures and things like this, but Google can identify what's in pictures now to a pretty scary level of accuracy. So even having your own good, unique, high-res photos about what you're selling and where you're at is going to start helping you, get more traction, get more customers, which hopefully will drive more profit, which means you can afford that developer to help you with the next iteration of, duplex on the web.
For those that don't understand what Mark means about Google can understand your photos, if you have a phone and you have Google Photos, go on it and type in tree and see what comes up, because it does understand and recognize pretty much every photo that you upload onto their server base. It's pretty impressive. You raise a really interesting higher question, and I'm going to get back on track in a second, but it raises a higher question, which is, should we really not be thinking too much about some of the stuff that's been released in this Google I/O 2019? Because is it just shiny stuff that we could be distracted by? Is it just stuff that, and I hear it all the time when I'm working with small businesses, they go to a conference and they listen to someone and they're talking all about, I don't know, whatever the new shiny thing was a couple of years, Snapchat, say, they'll be, they go to a conference all about Snapchat and they go, well, Snapchat is amazing. It's the new latest thing. It'll be take off and it'll be your $1 million thing. And they come back to you and say, we need Snapchat. And then you realize, well, you're a funeral directors. You don't want Snapchat. Okay. It's going to be catastrophic to you. Is there a danger of that where these are the new shiny things? Like you say, let's focus on the basics first.
Yeah. So I think it's useful for paradigm adjustment, if you want to kind of phrase it.
Nice.
So the thing I take from it and the thing I speak to businesses about is, okay, we know whatever percentage of your business is or is going digital. Okay. And I think the key message at the moment we can take from all this is that digital doesn't begin and end on your website. Yeah. If you're thinking about digital as a website, that's short-sighted and that could cost you in the long run. So I try and get people to think of their digital presence essentially just as a database.
Yeah. And
a website is one window into that. A Google Assistant is another window into that. Directly from Google search results is another way into that. Apps on iPhones are another way of tapping into that same information about their products, their services, what they do. And I think with the kind of AI stuff that's coming, it's important to increase for the best way I can put it is digital footprint, which is your presence amongst all of these different touch points. Because it's going to be and I think it was we had the Google Marketing Live this week.
Yes.
And they gave an example of a lady that had bought one pair of jeans. I think it was over a 70-day research period and had 200 touch points that led up to this purchase. Yeah. And it was across multiple devices and different ways of researching. And you're never going to get out of the the reality that, you know, all of these purchase paths, all of these decisions are complex, and, you know, long gone are the days of last click attribution, say, oh, we got the sale because they clicked on this ad.
Yeah.
It's way more complicated than that.
Absolutely.
So I think we just need to, that's what we need to take away from all this, which is, oh, wow, actually, yeah, the technology is shiny and it is complicated, but people are sometimes shiny and always complicated. So we need to bake that into the long-term plans. But yeah, definitely, you know, I wouldn't stress about it if you're not doing the basics. Just work on what's the next positive thing you can afford to do.
Yeah, I think I'm up to my 200th touch point on a VR kit, because I'm pretty sure I've been wanting that for about 4 years.
I think you're about half of me then.
Last point then, which technically wasn't a Google I/O announcement, which was the Evergreen Googlebot, which sounds like gobbledygook for anybody that doesn't know. But the Evergreen Googlebot is essentially, the Googlebot is the thing which goes onto your website and crawls it every so often. I say every so often, it does it multiple times a day, but, you know, goes onto your website and crawls your website, and it's now evergreen. And essentially that means is the Googlebot, as it was very, very it was using a very old rendering system to make it less technical. You know, the way that it looks at your website was using quite antiquated technology. Now they're saying they're keeping that up to date with what the latest Chrome browser is, which is obviously your web browser. So it'll see it in the same way as what your current web browser will see it as. Is this big news in the SEO world?
I'd like to say yes. I think for small businesses, I wouldn't pay a lot of attention to it, to be honest. So the main point I think you need to understand when people talk about Googlebot and crawling sites is when it comes to JavaScript. So JavaScript is the clever stuff, for people that don't know, that it basically makes all the clever stuff happen on websites that you see, and it's done in your browser. And Googlebot, when it comes to your site, at least the first time, doesn't bother running JavaScript because it's quite resource intensive to do. So it kind of looks at your page and says, oh, great, I can read whatever is on here. I can read without JavaScript, and it sends the page back home. And then up to, well, from our own tests, the longest I've seen is 24 days later, it will render the JavaScript. And if you have a website, you're using a platform, a framework that requires JavaScript to see important parts of your website, this can be quite detrimental to your rankings, because obviously Google can't see important things it needs to see. Now, so we've got this new update of Googlebot. It's evergreen. It smells better. It's running the latest Chrome version. But essentially, the only real difference is that it can do some of the more clever JavaScript it couldn't do before. But the main issue, which is as I see it, is the big time delay between it working out and being able to do this JavaScript still exists. So there were some clever tricks your developers might have been doing to get the older Googlebot to understand what was going on, and they don't have to do them now. But fundamentally, if you are still running a framework that requires JavaScript to kind of make your site basically work, then you're still going to be kind of wading through treacle trying to get your site to kind of rank well and rank your latest news you put on your site or whatever it is. Google's got a solution which they call server-side rendering, which is basically you give the Googlebot a different version of your page to users. So you give them a version where you've already worked out what the JavaScript looks like, and you just give the users a normal version, which I'm sure they used to call cloaking, doing things like that. But apparently that's
it's okay.
That's a cool thing to do now. Yeah, it's fine to do now. So most small business websites that I've seen at least tend to be fairly small sites, and it doesn't tend to be massively important that new content's indexed super quickly. So it's kind of that's interesting, the technology is catching up, but it's not, I think, going to set the world on fire for many people. Maybe just if you are using one of the free build your own website kind of platforms. Just be careful with your research there, because some of those platforms, and I won't throw any mud here, but some of those platforms do require JavaScript to make a lot of their stuff work.
Does it rhyme with anything?
That would be too mean to say, but as I said earlier, just make sure you're working on your picks and everything will be fine.
Well, from a man that said JavaScript does the clever stuff, that is a man that has explained JavaScript many times to a client that's unknown to it, which I thought was very, very impressive. Mark, thank you so much for going through and recapping Google I/O with me. It was really, really interesting. Like I said, not a huge amount that we can take from it that we can be proactive about, but it's good to know what it has sort of what's upcoming. Really, it's good to have that forward thinking when we're thinking about our business, not necessarily in the next 6 months, but in the next 6 years or 7 years. It's definitely good to keep abreast and updated of that. So thank you very much. Before you go, however, please tell everybody what you're up to and how people can actually find you at the moment.
So slightly interesting story, but it was interesting for me. So when I got married last year, I double-barreled my name. Thank you. I double-barreled my name from Mark Cook to Mark Williams-Cook. And I appear to be the only Mark Williams-Cook on Google.
That's staggering.
So yeah, I can't find another one. So
which is amazing, because they're two quite common last names.
Yeah. So if you want to easily find me / everything I've been doing on the internet since October 2018, then just Google my name, which is kind of a mixed blessing for me. I think the other thing worth mentioning is if you are kind of in the East Anglia region, I run an event called Search Norwich every 2 months. And it's a free to attend search marketing event. It's like our local meetup. We get 2 expert SEOs or PPC people from around the country. So we've had some really great speakers over the last year come. They give 2 20-minute talks completely for free about search. There's free beer, wine, pizza, good networking, kind of totally non-sales environment as well. So it's really great if you are a small business and you just kind of want to learn a bit more. If you go to searchnorwich.org, you can find that. And actually, we've got the videos of all the old talks on there as well. So even if you can't get down there, you can watch them. And if you want to find anything more about Candour, you can just go to withcandour.co.uk. It's Candour with a U. So it's CANDOUR.
I do recommend Search Norwich because it has seemed to have filtered its way. I mean, I'm based in Wigan and it's filtered its way up to me where even I know about it and I'm aware of it. I recently watched one of your brilliant videos, which was a black hat SEO techniques, which Craig Campbell.
I know the one you mean.
Yes, Craig Campbell.
That's correct.
Did a fantastic and brilliant talk. It was phenomenal. So if you are in the area, I do highly recommend you go and check that out and go and meet Mark and have a good time, because it does sound like a really fantastic event. Mark, thank you so much for joining me on the recap of Google I/O 2019. I really, really appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So there you have it, our recap episode of Google I/O 2019. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you were able to take something from that. Like I say, it's very much a look forward into the future of Google and search and how they're setting their priorities at the moment. So it is good to not necessarily take actions from it, but good to have in your back pocket so you know the direction in which you should be looking. As always, I would love to hear your questions and queries and feedback about the show, so don't forget you can get in contact with the Punkcast by emailing us at punkcast@digitalmarketingpunk.co.uk, or you can connect with me across all social media. Find me on Facebook, facebook.com/digitalmarketingpunk. You can find me on Twitter, which has changed now, so it's now at DMPunkPod. I'm also on Instagram, the same at DMPunkPod, and you can also connect with me on LinkedIn by searching for Digital Marketing Punk. It would also be great if you haven't done so already to subscribe to the Digital Marketing Punkcast. And if you really like the show, then help me out. Show your appreciation by giving us a 5-star review on iTunes. I hope you will join me on the next episode of the Digital Marketing Punkcast. Thank you very much.